Have you ever had a dream crash and burn right in front of you? That was me. My dream wasn't huge or complicated. I wasn't trying to build a mansion or invent the next big app. I just wanted a balcony garden, a little green oasis outside my apartment. Somewhere I could grow fresh herbs for cooking, maybe some cherry tomatoes to snack on, peppers for a bit of color, and flowers just to make it all look alive. You know, that perfect little setup you see in Instagram Reels and Pinterest boards where people casually step outside with scissors, snip some basil, and toss it into pasta? That was the dream. But reality? It was a straight-up disaster. Picture this. A few scraggly plants leaning over the edges of their pots, like they were auditioning for the role of plant on life support. Soil that turned to dry, cracked dust if you forgot to water for a single day. Pots that either flooded when it rained or baked under the sun until the roots fried. And me, standing there every morning with my coffee, staring at the mess like, what went wrong this time? It wasn't just one plant that failed. It was all of them. The basil shriveled into thin brown sticks. The tomato seedlings I was so proud of grew about 6 inches tall, then froze like they just gave up on life. The peppers never even got past the sprout stage. And the flowers? Let's just say they never made it to bloom. Instead of a lush, thriving green balcony, I had what looked like a collection of plant funerals. And let me tell you, nothing stings like watching something you put time, effort, and hope into just die. Every day I checked the pots, hoping for a miracle. Maybe a new leaf, maybe a little growth spurt, but nope. Just more yellow leaves, more shriveled stems, more disappointment. It got to the point where I avoided looking at the balcony altogether. I remember one morning so clearly. I opened the door, coffee in hand, ready, hoping to feel a little bit of pride. Instead, I stepped out to the sight of brittle leaves scattered across the tiles, soil that had pulled away from the edges of the pots, and a tomato plant bent completely sideways, its stem cracked. That was the moment it hit me. This wasn't just a small setback. This was failure, plain and simple. Honestly, I wanted to quit. Maybe gardening wasn't for me, maybe I just didn't have the so-called green thumb. Some people are good with plants, some aren't, right? That's what I told myself as I looked at my little balcony graveyard. I thought, okay, it's official. I'm not one of those people who can grow food. I should just accept it. But here's where things took a turn. What felt like a complete failure was actually setting me up for something way bigger. Because here's the thing, gardens don't fail. Gardeners just learn. And all those dead plants, they weren't proof that I couldn't do it. They were lessons, stacked one after the other, waiting for me to pay attention. I didn't know it then, standing over my wilted plants, but that so-called failure was about to flip into the best thing that ever happened to me. After staring at my balcony full of dead plants for weeks, I hit a point where I had two choices: quit completely or figure out what I was doing wrong. And honestly, at first, quitting sounded easier. Who wants to keep failing? But something in me wouldn't let go of the idea. I kept thinking about how amazing it would feel to step outside and actually pick something I grew with my own hands. That thought stuck in my head, like a little spark that refused to die out. So instead of walking away, I started asking better questions. Why were my plants struggling? Was it really about me not having a green thumb? Or was it just about not understanding what plants actually need? I realized that the way I had started was basically plant it and pray. I bought some random soil, threw in seeds, watered whenever I remembered, and expected magic. No wonder it failed. That wasn't gardening. That was gambling. So I began digging into the basics, and I mean really simple stuff. First thing I learned, soil isn't just dirt. It's alive. It's supposed to be full of nutrients, organic matter, and tiny invisible helpers like microbes. The dry, lifeless stuff I had been using, it was basically plant sand. No wonder my tomatoes looked like they'd given up hope. Then came watering. I thought more water meant more growth, but all I was really doing was drowning the roots. Roots need air too. I didn't know that. I thought soggy soil was fine, but it turns out it's like trying to breathe with a pillow over your face. That explained why some of my plants had just rotted at the base. And the sun, don't even get me started on the sun. I had put plants in spots that looked nice for me, but not for them. Some fried under direct sunlight all day long, while others sat in constant shade. I hadn't matched the plant's needs to its place. I was basically setting them up to fail. Armed with this new knowledge, I decided to try again. But this time, I kept it simple. I made compost out of my kitchen scraps, banana peels, coffee grounds, veggie leftovers. It felt weird at first, but when I mixed that into the soil, I could already see the difference. It looked richer, darker, full of life. I started paying attention to the weather. Hot day? I checked the soil before watering instead of just dumping water on top. Cloudy day? I let the plants breathe and didn't fuss with them. I moved pots around until they found their sweet spots in terms of light. It was like learning the personalities of each plant, and then came the breakthrough. The next season, when I tried again, I saw green shoots pop up and keep growing, stronger than before. Basil leaves that actually smelled incredible when I rubbed them between my fingers. Tomato plants that climbed taller than the tiny sticks I used to support them. Lettuce that didn't immediately wilt, but came up crisp and crunchy. I couldn't believe it. The balcony that used to make me feel embarrassed was finally starting to look alive. And it wasn't just about looks anymore. I could taste the difference. That first bite of fresh basil in my pasta? Mind-blowing. That first cherry tomato I picked and popped into my mouth? Sweeter than any store-bought tomato I'd ever had. What's crazy is how each failure turned into a stepping stone. Overwatering taught me about drainage. Dead soil taught me the magic of compost. Sunburned leaves taught me timing and placement. Instead of killing my dream, all those mistakes were quietly shaping me into a gardener who actually knew what they were doing. That's when I understood the truth. I didn't fail. I was just learning the language of plants. And once you start to speak that language, even a little bit, the garden starts to respond in ways that feel almost magical. It started small. Just a few basil plants, a handful of lettuce leaves, a couple of cherry tomatoes that finally ripened without dropping off early. But then something shifted. My balcony wasn't just surviving anymore. It was exploding with life. I'd step outside, and instead of being greeted by sad pots of dirt, I saw green everywhere. The tomato plants stretched up and out, their vines so heavy with little clusters of fruit that I had to keep adding sticks and strings just to support them. The basil grew faster than I could pick it, the scent hitting me the second I opened the balcony door. The mint spread like wildfire, taking over its container until I had more than I could ever use in tea or smoothies. Suddenly the problem wasn't, why won't anything grow? But what do I do with all this food? I had more lettuce than I could eat in salads, so I started giving bags away to neighbors. The peppers came in waves of color. First green, then red, then yellow. Every time I walked out, it felt like something new was ready to harvest. And here's the part that surprised me most. The garden started attracting life beyond just the plants. Bees showed up, buzzing from flower to flower. Butterflies landed on the tomato blossoms. Ladybugs crawled along the stems, doing their little job of keeping pests in check. It felt like the whole balcony had turned into a tiny ecosystem, buzzing and alive with energy. The craziest moment came when I realized I didn't need to buy herbs at the store anymore. I'd be cooking dinner, and instead of running to the grocery store for parsley or oregano, I just opened the balcony door, snipped what I needed, and tossed it straight into the pan. The flavor was on another level. Fresh, vibrant, alive. Even simple dishes felt gourmet because they had that burst of freshness you can't buy in a plastic box. And the abundance wasn't just physical, it was emotional. My mornings changed completely. Before, I'd rush out of bed, grab coffee, and scroll through my phone. Now, I'd walk outside first thing, check on the plants, notice how much they'd grown overnight, see if any flowers had bloomed. It became this grounding ritual, a way to start the day with something real and alive. There was this moment, I'll never forget it, when I was sitting on the balcony, surrounded by greenery, eating a handful of cherry tomatoes straight from the vine. The sun was setting, the plants were glowing in golden light, and I realized I had created this. With my own hands, my own patience, and a whole lot of trial and error, I had turned a barren little balcony into a place of abundance. And it wasn't just about food anymore. The garden taught me patience, consistency, and trust in the process. Plants don't grow overnight. They don't care about your schedule or your deadlines. They respond to care, attention, and time. And that lesson started bleeding into the rest of my life. I slowed down, I noticed the little things. I felt proud in a way I hadn't expected, because every leaf, every flower, every fruit was proof that failure can turn into growth if you don't quit. What began as scarcity, nothing growing, nothing thriving, had transformed into overflow. I had more food than I could eat, more joy than I could measure, and a balcony that felt like stepping into a secret garden. It was abundance in the purest form. Looking back now, I can honestly say this: that first failed balcony garden was the best thing that ever happened to me. At the time, it felt like proof I couldn't do it, but now I see it for what it was, the starting point. The truth is, failure doesn't mean the end. It means you're in the middle of learning. And in gardening, every mistake plants the seed for the next success. If I had gotten it all right the first time, I never would have learned what I know now. I never would have discovered how powerful compost can be, or how important drainage is, or how much difference sunlight placement makes. I would have skipped straight to good results without understanding why they were happening. And without that understanding, I never would have been able to build something lasting. That's the lesson. Failure wasn't the opposite of success. It was part of the path to it. And here's the beautiful part. Abundance isn't reserved for people with acres of land or giant backyards. It's not about having the perfect tools or being born with some magical green thumb. It's about showing up, learning, adjusting, and trying again. My garden happened on a tiny balcony in the middle of a city, with nothing but a handful of pots and the determination not to give up. If I can do it, anyone can. So maybe your version of a failed balcony garden looks different. Maybe it's a project you tried that didn't work. Maybe it's a business idea, a workout plan, a relationship, or even just a personal goal you couldn't stick with. Whatever it is, that failure isn't the end of the story. It's just the messy, awkward first chapter. The part where you stumble, trip, and scrape your knees before you find your rhythm. The real failure? It's not falling down. It's refusing to get back up. When I step onto my balcony now, I don't just see plants. I see a reminder that growth takes time. I see proof that small steps, done consistently, create big change. I see abundance, not just in food, but in joy, patience, and pride. And I carry that mindset into everything else I do. So here's my challenge to you. Whatever your balcony garden is, the thing you've tried and failed at, give it another shot. Don't walk away just because it didn't work the first time. Ask better questions. Learn from what didn't work, adjust, and then try again. Because the abundance you're looking for, it's on the other side of not quitting. And trust me when it finally clicks, when you get that first taste of success, when you hold in your hand something you created out of persistence and patience, it's worth every single flop, every dead plant, every failed attempt along the way. The only real failure is giving up before the miracle happens.